Hi, you guys. Today we are going to go back and touch on the mental faculties. Okay, so your faculties, and I wanted to touch on intellect, reasoning, and basically how when you get into your reasoning mind, which again is part of your conscious mind. Okay, when you get into your reasoning mind, it can create a double mind. Okay, so never call it a double mind. And Florence Coaching used to say that we can sometimes reason ourselves out of things that our intuition is telling us to do. Um, we can have like sometimes it, fear because right now, um, everything that's happening right now with the world can sometimes feel like overwhelming, right? Because the things that happen in the news oftentimes can set up these paradigms, right? And the things that are going on in the news, if you watched my video, Matrix Energy, and that's a video about how to read the energy. You can read anybody's energy just doing that. And basically, um, in that video, I touch on the fact that when it goes into the nodes, think nodes and news. Okay, when it goes into the nodes, it's going into the news. It's codes that the system is or energy is putting into, and this is basically on a macro scale what's happening, and then in your mental faculties, this is on a micro scale what's happening. Okay, so that affects your paradigms here. Okay, what you see on the news, what you see in all of those things, that affects all of that aspect. And then runs mental programs, you know. Um, but I wanted to explain to you that your subconscious mind operates from a place of intuition. It doesn't necessarily use words to communicate with you, okay? It's intuitive hunches, like it might not even make sense why you're feeling like that's the answer, that's what you believe, that's what you're looking at. It's because your subconscious mind spots the pattern before you do. Okay, it's very intelligent. It listens very well. If you ever want to test your subconscious mind, I can give you an exercise. Go and listen to a book. Listen to it at 2 or 3 times the speed, depending on how fast can you listen to that book. Now, fall asleep. Fall asleep if you want and listen to that book. And then one day later on, what you will find is that somehow you know things about this book. And I don't know if that just happens to be because I have ADHD, but I, I think that if you try this, you might notice something, honestly. Um, because I listened to one book that was about like mechanical things, and I was in the car with my ex, and we're getting onto the Ann ramp, and I don't even know how I knew this information. And then I thought back, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was from that book. So yes, um, your subconscious mind is always listening. Remember that. The intellect is your reasoning. It can create a situation where you can reason yourself out of your intuition. It can create a double mind. This is something that Neville talked about a lot. He said that if you reason yourself out of things that are outside of the routine or outside of the pattern, right? This is like um, basically the way that I'm going to explain this to you is the way that Neville and Florence Scovel, if they could explain it to you, this is how they would explain it to you, okay? And that is that Florence Scovel said that it was very hard for people who were very, very chained to their routine to be able to be intuitive, to be able to listen to their intuition, and to be able to pay attention to the subconscious mind communicating back to them. Okay? So just keep that in mind because there's a lot of people that are often like, my manifestation, this and the other, and all the stuff. And I don't want to say the words either because I don't want to instill in you any of those things. Okay? You are here with me in the dimension where everything good happens for you and for me. Everything is yes right now. Everything good is happening. And so I don't want to introduce anything that is going to, you know, bring any type of irritation to you or to your mind or to your subconscious mind. I am very gentle and I see how other people teach the law of attraction on here and they go on their tangents where it sounds like some kind of anti affirmation, right? And I don't want to be that person. And so, for that reason, let me tell you, I'm very mindful about what I say, okay? So, what I want to instill in you is that when you have double mind, which happened to me the other day, I went through so much to basically go back to a work field that I had been part of. I went through getting a background check. I went through getting like doing it was like three different applications. I went through getting my references. I went through what felt like so much. And let me tell you that um, then I got it right. And if you haven't listened to my video where I have one that says I found him by Neville Goddard, which is actually uh, it's it's part Neville Goddard and part basically a script of affirmation that somebody who was on Nevolution Japan had been on, and I am going so blank right now on his name, but right now I'm going super blank, and it's not because he's not memorable, it's because I can see his face right now, but I cannot remember the name because I have this ADHD, so please forgive me for my disability in that sense. Um, I try my best here, but I can't remember the name right now, and it will probably come to me either in a few minutes or something. But if you haven't watched that video, I talk about in that video that I do basically like a reread of his version of him wanting to manifest to go to Canada during the pandemic. And he uses basically the script that Neville used, but he plugs in Canada. And he says, I cannot explain to you the feeling when you found him, right? You found Jesus Christ from scripture because we're talking about Neville. He always refers back to the Bible, right? And what he means is like Jesus, like the place where everything is possible. The person that is your key maker, that is your oracle, that is your savior, the one where everything becomes possible, the dimension where everything is possible. And he says, then I fell into contemplative thought and I felt fear. And that is exactly what happened to me. I went through all of this and got basically in the system. I'm like in the union, everything. And then this lady was like, you should try and get like list yourself on this in this platform and all this stuff. Anyway, I went and did all of that, and what happened was that somebody offered me like a job for this, but it wasn't actually the area of expertise that I have with caregiving. And I had to explain to this person also, they were trying to like practically give me a hospice patient. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I do not do hospice patients. I'm long term care. And I kept trying to explain to this person. And finally, I got through to this person that, that's not the kind of caregiving that I do. And I felt like really bad for setting this boundary. And I had this double mind like, should I go back and like tell her I'll do it? And then I talked to my mom, and my mom was like, no. She's like, that is a very depressing job, and you don't do that kind of caregiving anyway. So why are you going to sign up yourself for this, right? And um, so then I was like, you know what? She's right. I talked to another one of my friends. She said the same thing to me. She's like, because my expertise is like, I know how to take care of people with special needs, how to get them talking. That's basically my type of stuff. Like, I can get them swimming, I can get them talking, I can get them doing that sort of thing. Things that I guess other people struggle with these kids, but I'm somehow able to connect with them. And um, I don't know, I don't know where it comes from. But basically, long story short, I was having such double mind, right? So, double mind, think about that place where you go to where you're like trying to set a boundary and you're like, oh my gosh, should I not? But it's like, deep down in your intuition what the answer is, what the right thing to do is, what the right like path is, right? And so the right path was that wasn't a patient meant for me. That was a patient really meant for like something else, right? And for somebody else, I mean. And so I just let it be and I moved on. And I didn't think much of it. And you know, you'll you'll run into a lot of this, all of these kinds of moments, and your intuition is always going to be what signals back to you. That's going to tell you, like, yes or no. And sometimes it's going to feel like very out of your routine, out of what's normal for you. But trust it, trust it. Get to know you, because a lot of us were not allowed to know ourselves. I was one of those people who wasn't allowed to know myself. I didn't know who I was because I grew up in, this very religious and conservative household. And granted that I consider myself conservative, but I don't consider myself conservative in a way that's like just almost what I would consider almost hurtful to other people, almost like it, God will find your kids. I don't understand this, like how people think, you know, because I shall like let me tell you, shelter your kids as much as you want. Do it. Go ahead. But keep your keep yourself knowing that your kids are on their own journey, right? And I'm not saying give them all the freedom in the world and let them go like ruin their lives, but I'm saying that your kids are on their own journey. They will have their own perspective, and you're meant to know them. You're meant to know your kids. Let them be who they are so you can know them. Because if you don't let them be who they are, they will hate you, they will resent you, and it's going to be like me with my, you know, my family, that like my biological family, because I have an adoptive family and then I have a biological family. And I feel so bad to say this, but I do not love my biological family apart from my kids. I love my kids, but I don't love my biological family because they were this way. And they never got to meet my kids. They had no interest in it either. Why? Because they didn't want to know people. They just wanted to be in a church where they got money and you know that was all they wanted, right? And yeah, I really hope nobody ever has to go through that, but yeah, that's my 2 cents about this. So that is like how to know if you're dealing with double mind. I'll give you another example, which you're gonna think my family's even crazier. But I was gonna get this car, and um, it was an electric car. And what's crazy was that when Bob Proctor had done, he did this like this class online, and he gave it free to everyone. And I have his I Mindset, I think it's called. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I have it, and in there, I wrote what kind of car I was gonna get, and I drew the car, I drew the color, I, I, everything, and I somehow had actually written that the car would be electric, and I wrote that it would be white because I wanted people to see me out in the road and stuff like that, and um, to see me at night, even though like I hardly ever drive at night. I'm 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 like a scaredy cat. I really am, even though like I I'm not actually like a scaredy cat, but I am a scaredy cat. I don't know how to explain this. But anyways, um so I go to the dealership with my mom, and my mom sees the car, falls in love with it, and she's like, "You're getting this car. It's in her mind, this was like the dream car, the great, best car." And so I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I really like the car, all this stuff, right? So then, um, we're coming back home, and um, my mom, my mom, she was like, "You're gonna get that car, or you're not gonna be alive." And then she like tried to crash, and she tried to crash. Yeah, you guys are gonna think my family's crazy. She tried to crash the car to scare me so that we would get the car. And then we get home, and I was like even more scared now um to get the car. So now I was like, I don't even know if I want to be in a car. So, you know, I'm kind of like facing this fear, she's trying to get me to face this fear of dying, right? In a car accident, which, let me tell you, that's the least way I want to go. And so basically, um, we're mad, and we're like, I don't know, I wasn't even talking to her for a while. And then, but we were like in this, like hanging out, but then she's like, "So are you gonna get the car?" And then she just kept telling me like, "You're getting that car, getting that car." And I was like, "I don't know." I'm like, it just seems like a small car, and I really want a like bigger car. I kept saying I wanted a truck, and she's like, "You want a truck, but you can't afford a truck because it's gonna be too much for gas and all this stuff." And I was like, "But I really would like to have like a big truck. I want to be in something big so I can feel safe." And she's like, "No, no, you don't need to do that. You know how to drive. You're gonna be fine. You are gonna get that car." So, um, there we go the next day. Um, but wait a minute, let me tell you. That night, I prayed the rosary. I prayed it like 10 times in a row. I prayed the rosary 10 times in a row. I was so tired. Then I did the I found him. Um, the same I found him that I just told you about that's in my video. I did that one. I did that script. And I something told me, something in me, like this intuition just told me, go to bed, turn off the light because there's gonna be a power outage. And then literally I got up, I turned off the light, and the entire city loses power. My neighbor's house and her light comes in through my window, and the entire city lost power. And I wake up the next day, and the clocks are all blinking, and I was like, I guess the system reset, right? I guess like the matrix or whatever life is, this matrix energy or whatever, I guess it reset. I'm thinking to myself. And then basically what happens is that um, I basically end up that I get up, and and my mom is like in her car. She's like, get dressed. We're going. And I'm like, going where? I had forgotten everything about the car. And then she's like, we're gonna go get the car. And so, long story short, my mom goes with me. I I get the car, and then um she comes back. This is I didn't even drive the car back from the dealership because I was like, I don't know. I just could not trust myself. I have these things where I don't sometimes I just don't trust myself. I don't know why. I don't. And so she basically drove back, dropped me off, went back, got the car, drove it back. My Then my sister came, picked her up, and they went and got her car. And anyway, she went home, all that. And yeah, that's so I got the car. I got the car and I experienced the Bridge of Incidents. Like, yeah, that was the Bridge of Incidents. And if I tell you even what happened even before that, like how how everything came and lined up for me to even get like the that much money, because I didn't get paid for a very long time, and then that was back pay. And because I had that back pay, I was able to like afford to get the car. So yeah, but there's just so much more, so much more. And then I won, um I won enough money to basically be able to afford a background check for the FBI, because during COVID the background checks were like $170, and it was super expensive. And so that was like a lot of money for me, at the time. And I wasn't even getting paid from my job and everything. And I was waiting for the back pay. And because everything was shut down and everything, and I worked for something that is basically like through the government. So at the time, and so anyway, I went to a casino because my mom again was like, we're going to go have fun. You are depressed all the time. You cry all the time. And I was like, I guess I'm going. I'm going to this casino, I guess, to spend the money that I thought I didn't have. And there I go. And she didn't even give me like money or anything, okay? Don't even think she gave me money. Okay, my mom's never really been like that type of person. And so we get to the casino, and I had literally like I didn't even bring money because I'm like, I'm just gonna be here, and if they have like free food or whatever, because she told me that was gonna be like free food, which there was, And I was like, I guess if they have some free food here, I'll eat something or I'll drink a coffee. She said there was free coffee, and there was. And I get there, and I get my little free coffee, and I'm surrounded by like all this like Chinatown stuff, and there's like this dragon on the wall, and they're like giving away this like free car, and I keep like looking at that car, like, oh my god, that car looks so pretty, and I just wish I had like had a car, at the time, because this is before I had gotten the car, and I kid you not, I went to this like little dollar machine or coin machine or penny machine, I can't remember. Oh yeah, penny machine. Before they got rid of them. Okay, so right on time, I had perfect timing, and I sit there and I pay, and I play. I play $1, so 100 pennies, but I played 3 pennies, so 3 spins. And on the third spin, it gives me like $171. And I pulled it out, and I was like, this is enough money for me to get basically the background check that I needed, um, and to finalize everything for my job and all that stuff. And then since everything was, all the paperwork was pending, and that's why they hadn't like paid me out. So I was working, but they hadn't like paid me out, and it was just weird times. Pandemic times were weird times. And anyways, then I went and got my background check and everything, and they finally paid me out, and I was able to afford that car. And then oddly enough, I ended up later in a custody battle. So with that money, I was able to like have my son with me for like a lot longer, a lot longer. And I kept winning, and it wasn't until I got this horrible attorney. Oh my gosh, he was like this terrible, honestly, terrible. Um, I call him the NPC, NPC, because he looks just like everybody. Um, and I'm like, oh, I see him in commercials. I see him walking down the street. He has everybody's face. Anyways, don't get me started because I can really throw shade. But yeah, that was the crazy story about my bridge of incidents, and how when you make up your mind, it happens. Whether you want to or not, it happens. All right. Well, take care of yourself. Bye.